all make wine because we enjoy it, and we intend to have a lot of fun.
It's fair to say that the wines in the last 20 years in South Africa has changed a lot. I think this country's got amazing wines and stretched beyond the Swartland and the Swartland independent producers. I just think the country's in a very good place. When Michael Friedgen introduced the Swartland Independent in 2010, he outlined some criteria that he thought was very important, and then we took it as a board and we went back and we wrote down what's basically became the template, the criteria template, the DNA of what a Swartland wine should look like. And we formalized these rules. And very important was with ethical winemaking is obviously not adjusting your acidity.
There's no yeast, no nutrition for fermentation,
just no chemicals,
no new oak, etc., etc. No additives of any kind.
The people who are drawn here they're just real down-to-earth people. They're salt of the earth, and because of that, there's this easy energy between people. There's no airs and graces. People are down to earth, and there's this real sense of camaraderie here.
There's a lot of international interest in what's going on down here, especially in the Swartland.
And the wines are really world class.
In the rest of the world, people are working on releasing some of the restrictions they have on winemaking to make it more commercially viable. But we feel that by tightening up restrictions in this region, where there aren't the rules like they have in France, that it'll create a better wine.
The vineyard that's fermenting in here was planted 88 years ago. It's groovy to think that you can make wine from a plant that's that old.
It's wonderful to see these old vineyards revive. You want to do something original and creative, and it's difficult to strive to do that. And we found with wines, the wines that have got the most character and the best expression of these soils in this place are the wines we do very, very little to.
Yes, there's people doing different things, but I think at the end of the day, some people are calling it maverick, but I think we're actually quite conservative, where we're going back to the roots of winemaking. And to me, it's more very old school approaches rather than being maverick. So yes, in today where people are trying all sorts of fancy new things and we're swinging the other direction, to them that's different and crazy.
I've heard quite a lot about the sort of concept of ethical winemaking, not just in the actual process, but also more a concept of social responsibility.
I've got some interns working here. These guys going back to Chile, to India, to Germany. The Swartland footprint is like really, really big on their psyche. It's amazing. Yeah.
We're benefiting from the environment, from the soil, from where we're going, also from the people who work with us and work for us. And it's super important to look after the environment and look after the people that work for you and with you. It's extremely important.
Sustainable viticulture in this area to a large extent is dryland farming.
This farm is a dry farm. But if I had a bit of water in a year like this, I would have irrigated a bit.
Yeah. Learning which vineyards you don't have to pick really, really ripe to gain something interesting.
One of the other things that's sort of come up is this talk about ethical winemaking, not just the wine industry but agriculture, is all about actually looking after one's staff as well.
It's one of the encouraging things about the South African wine industry. It's a very, very unique dynamic. You don't get it in any other business. You've got families living on your property, families that have been living there for generations. And of course, there's a huge responsibility.
If we're ever short of some grapes, I can phone any of the other winemakers in the region and say, this year we're short on a couple of tons of Syrah, or we really need some Chenin or something, and every single person you phone will help you out.
In a region that didn't have small independent producers before, to set up such a vast number of them in a space of 10 years, we all still feel like visitors here. And when you visit a place, you're a little bit more nervous than when you feel like you've sort of got an inheritance in the place.
If you open the Platter Guide and you go back to the 80s or maybe even the late 90s, and you open the Platter Guide and you'll see there are more single bottlings of Cinsault than there are of Shiraz. That's how quickly this industry has changed in the last 20 years,
I think the people who come to the festival and they come to the region and visit the wineries, they instantly feel this real positive energy.
If you're removed from the place where the grapes are produced, you cannot but be removed from the wines. You know, there's from the owner to the winemaker to the wine, from the vineyard, there's nothing is lost in translation. You want to speak to the owner, winemaker, and hopefully that's the same thing.
When it comes to the actual wine, you gotta like just step back a little bit and let the region do its own talking.
But if you're going to buy it on promotion for $2.99, you must think again. With the $2.99, nothing is going to the farmer, and certainly nothing is going to the farm workers.
One star doesn't make a constellation. You know, you need a lot of like-minded people in a region that's moving in the same direction, and then you've got momentum.
Yeah. I think that, yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you'd think that internationally people are tired of new wine regions and new things. But when something like this comes along where it is real, has a strong message that's clearly understandable, and a lot of producers they're not copying each other, but we're working along a similar approach. It's easily understandable by people, so they can latch onto it and go with it. So.